Dear students, today we are going to discuss about the planning function of management. Earlier we discussed about the various functions of management, where I discussed about the planning, organizing, directing and controlling. Now let us discuss about the planning in management. First we will start with the fundamentals of planning. In the fundamental of planning, we need to understand the concept of planning. What is the meaning of planning? Planning is something of a paradox. I mean, it is an omnibus term which is having convenient utility and a generalized context, extending from broad philosophical consideration to practice detail. So in another way we can say that there is a fundamental difference between planning and plan. Planning is an activity. It can be considered as a consisting of a process, hence various sub-activities. On the other hand, we can say plan is a commitment to a particular course of action which is believed necessary to achieve specific results. For example, Government of India who prepares 5-year plan which consists of various actions to be taken, results to be achieved and resources to be used. So these all are plans. So plans are prepared through the planning process, which involves various activities to arrive at what is to be achieved, how it is to be achieved, and when to be achieved. So therefore we can say planning is taken as a process. So planning is a process, involves the determination of future course of action, that is why an action, what action, how to take action and when to take action. So this is why we can say what, how and when are related with different aspects of planning process. So why of action reveals that action has come objectives or the end results which can organization wants to achieve. What to action specifies the activities to be undertaken. How and when generates various policies, programs, procedures and other related elements. Thus we can say all these elements speak about the futurity of planning. So if we talk about the definition of planning, planning is the selection and relating of facts, making the uses of assumptions regarding the future, individualization and formalization of proposed activity which is believed necessary to achieve desired result. Let's talk about the features of planning. There are various features of planning, which is like planning is a process rather than behavior at a given point of time. So this process determines the future course of action. Planning is primarily concerned with looking into future. It requires forecasting of future situation in which the organization has to function. Therefore we can say correct forecasting of future situation leads to correct decisions about future course of actions. Planning involves selection of suitable course of action. This means there are several alternatives for achieving a particular objectives or set of objectives. However, all of them are not equally feasible and suitable for the organization. Planning is undertaken at all levels of organization because all levels of management are concerned with the determination of future course of action. However, its role increases at successively higher level of management. Moreover, we can say planning at different levels may be different in the context that at the top management level managers are concerned about the totality of the organization and tries to relate it with the environment, with while manager at lower level may be involved in the internal planning. Planning is always a flexible as commitment is based on the future conditions, so which are always dynamic. As such we can say, and it is an adjustment which is needed between the various factors and planning. Planning is a pervasive and continuous managerial function involving involving complex processes of perception, analysis, conceptual thought, communication, decision, and action. The very pervasiveness of these planning elements makes it difficult to identify and observe them in detail. Nature of planning says it is being a rational approach. Planning is a rational approach because for defining where one stands, where one wants to go in future and how to reach there. The concept of rationality denotes the choice of appropriate means for achieving stated objectives in organizational context. Planning as a rational approach tries to fill the gap between actual status and desired status. The difference between the two times period, that means T1 and T2, where the T1 is the current status and T2 is the desired status. It may vary between short term, say 1 year or so, or it can be long term, maybe 5 year or so. It depends upon the degree of the futurity which an organization takes into account for charting out its plan. So the current and desired status is usually expressed in terms of objectives which can be achieved by an action or set of actions. For completing an action, various types of resources, human as well as non-human, are required. So the rational approach of planning emphasizes the most appropriate use of these resources. So planning, it was about the planning as a rational approach. If we talk about the planning as an open system approach, in which we can say that the organization in the open system, it takes inputs from the environment, processes these and exports outputs to environment. The open system approach of planning indicates that the identification of gap between current status and desired status in future, and the actions required to bridge the gap is influenced by various variety of environmental factors, which can be economic, political, legal, technological, socio-cultural, and competitive. So these factors are dynamic and change with the time. Therefore, while adopting open system approach in planning, managers have to take into account the dynamic features of the environment. Pervasiveness of planning means planning is a pervasive in nature and it extends throughout the organization. Every manager has a planning function to perform. This stems from the fact that he is a manager and the planning is a fundamental management function. However, the pervasiveness of planning is commonly overlooked and planning is frequently considered as being the function of top management level. While it is true that they devote more of their time for planning and work with more vital issues than the managers of the middle and lower level. So the fact remains that every manager have to perform planning within his particular area of activities. Top management is responsible for overall objectives and actions of the organization. Therefore, it must plan what these objectives should be and how these can be achieved. Similarly, a departmental head has to devise the objectives of his department within the organizational objectives and also the methods of achieving these, which is a foreman has to devise the objectives and of his shop and also how to achieve this. For example, budget as a part of plan is in various organizations is prepared at various levels. Each level contributes to the preparation of budget by contributing what his efforts will require in terms of allocation of resources and what his efforts will contribute in terms of results. Planning exists in all the organization regardless of its size or nature activities. In large organization, its presence is apparent due to some employees giving all or major portion of their time for planning efforts. For example, many large organizations have established separate corporate planning departments. Usually, in these cases, emphasis is given to such things as the allocation of area available resources in the best manner to achieve basic goals and the course of action for certain problems deemed most expeditious at the time and places. This is all about the planning, concept of planning, and nature of planning. In my next session, we will talk about the importance of planning. Thank you.